Miami. Generally, when we hear this name, we think of the city in Florida. White, sandy beaches accompanied by lots of humidity and summer parties. We may even think of that catchy song by Will Smith. But whatever the case, it came as a surprise when I, being an Arizona native born and raised, realized that there is actually a city in Arizona named Miami. Sure, I had heard of the city while once working an application at my daytime job, but it wasn't until one night not so long ago that this town really sparked my interest. After talking with a friend one night after class, I realized I didn't know of many of the haunted places here in the valley. In fact, I only knew of the notable haunts such as the San Carlos Hotel, or other towns such as Tombstone, Bisbee, even Jerome. So late on that Tuesday night, I found myself immersed in research of less infamous haunts in Phoenix. It was not too long after a regular Google search that I found a new adventure for myself. Located a mere 75 miles east of Phoenix, Miami was founded in 1907. The town, rich in history in itself, is also surrounded by land with an evident past. As my buddy John and I headed towards this desolate newfound intrigue, we took notice of many of the sights and sounds unique to the desert. But in the back of our heads, the eerie town still lured ahead, curiosity drawing us closer and closer, driven by the rumors of which we had read off the internet. Rumors which had stated many ghosts were present here, many of which were miners who had been unfortunate in the mines. Which is why our next stop, at the entrance of Miami, was just a tad unsettling. For it was just minutes after passing through both active and inactive mines that John and I stumbled upon the town graveyard, the Memorial Gardens. Many of the graves here had been here for quite some time, perhaps those that had belonged to the miners. After a brief stop here, due to my friend's reluctancy to step on the deceased, we surged forward into Miami, where we were greeted by some unwelcoming residents. So we're here in Miami, Arizona, and we're getting ready to just check out the town and walk around and see some of the sights. Not long after walking through the town, I realized it was going to be pretty difficult to find people that actually wanted to speak on camera. Fortunately enough, I did stumble across a gentleman, owner of JH Antiques and resident since 2002. Meet Jim Henderson. He was able to provide me a little bit of information about the history of the town.
Well, this, of course, it's primarily been a mining town, mining area. There are a couple of mines close right behind on the hill up here. In fact, you can still see the works from the mine up there. They mine primarily, I think in the beginning, silver and gold, and then eventually started mining copper, and that became the most substantial form of mining in the area. They were very busy back at that time. Probably the biggest building period was probably around the time of World War I. The miners would live in whatever small area they could find to live in, and some of the rooms they lived in were about 8 feet square, so it was a pretty bare existence at that time.
Jim also informed me that many of these mines were reopening again as they are once again becoming profitable. So after hearing a bit of the history of the town, I pressed forward hoping to speak with more residents and gather more stories. And what I found was that there were a lot of common stories that multiple residents were telling me. For example, one such story included the YMCA. So it was awful segregated at that time?
Well, they had 2 YMCAs. I don't know if anybody told you about the YMCA.
For it was not too long ago that segregation was common in the town of Miami. There were actually 2 YMCAs, one for the white residents and one for the Mexicans.
The YMCA you see over here, in its early years, Mexicans could come in and swim Saturday evenings. Because on Sunday they drained the pool clean.
So that's the YMCA, and then on this side of the creek was the Mexican YMCA.
I went to investigate the YMCA, but unfortunately it had been closed down for quite some time. Peering in through the windows with my camera, I was able to capture some images from the past. In addition to the YMCA, after talking with some of the residents, I found yet another common story.
And what's not in the little story right here is that this upstairs was a brothel.
The upstairs was probably a brothel.
Right upstairs in this building is a brothel.
I'm hearing that a lot. Brothels upstairs. So what exactly is a brothel? A brothel, also known as a bordello, cat house, or whorehouse, is an establishment specifically dedicated to prostitution. Scandalous, indeed. But what about all the ghost stories I heard about this town? I mean, is it really haunted?
This one probably is one of the buildings I have not heard anything about it being haunted.
Yeah, there has been a few haunted houses around.
Really?
I can't lie, I was somewhat disappointed by the answers to this question, but because the reviews ended up being mixed, I decided to let that go. Yet despite my disappointment, my mood was quickly lifted when I came across this gentleman. This is Bernie, not to be confused with Robert De Niro, who ended up being my personal tour guide for that afternoon. He is the owner of a store entitled The Book Bank, which is actually a bookstore that was transformed from a bank. He showed me some of the unique characteristics of not only his store, but the town itself.
And then if you got locked in here, and this is a ventilator, so this would be to get outside air in here. So this goes outside and brings in outside air if you get locked in the vault.
I wonder if anybody ever got locked in here.
Yeah. Criminal traffic document, and let's look and see if we can find a date in here. These are all the tickets that were issued to people in Miami. No driver's license, no vehicle registration.
Bernie had a great sense of humor and he was full of tons of stories, which is why he was by far the friendliest person I had met in Miami that day.
The coal in from upstairs outside, and they would fill this room. This would be the coal room where the coal was stored years ago. Wow. We thought of using this for Halloween party down here. Well, I don't know if you heard of the pasties we're selling up here. And a guy, if you heard about this miners food we have we're selling up here, it's called pasty, and they have a history of it. The miners made it, and it's sort of like a folded, it's meat and vegetables and potatoes in it.
Oh, wow.
They folded it over, and then they use their fingers. And you never ate the crust because you don't know whether they had lead poison in their fingers from the mines. So you always threw the crust away, apparently, and the people they say that ate the crust died. Here,
Bernie even had his own secret trap door, which led us outside.
we got a door back there.
Which, in conclusion of the tour, Bernie showed us one of his friend's favorite hobbies, which is retouching and reselling antiques, which are pretty common to find here in Miami. By the end of my tour, I was just about ready to leave the town, but not without seeing who had been the artist behind all these paintings I had seen all day long. You see, as I had been wandering around the town, I had noticed the cats and animals painted outside of many of the houses. And the artist behind this was actually in town. The artist's name behind this is Miriam Collins, and I was fortunate enough to speak with her for a bit. How many cat paintings do you have around the town?
I've actually got 45 figures.
45?
A lot of them are combinations where the people own a dog and a cat, so I'll paint their dogs and cats.
Oh, okay.
There's one there we call Revenge, and it's the pigeons. He had so many pigeons when he cleaned it out. The pigeons are on the rail, there's a cat flying through the air.
Oh, wow.
That was a good one.
After a long and eventful day in Miami, my handy cameraman John and I said our goodbyes and hit the road. We stopped over at a little diner in Superior where I enjoyed a nice cold beverage and was able to reflect upon my day. Miami. Now when I hear this name, I think of a number of things. Smiling faces standing out over the dilapidated town. I think of rich history, full of tradition and pride. But most of all, when I hear the name Miami, I think of the friends that I made, and that it is not some exit worth flying past when headed towards Globe. So I encourage you, next time you are headed somewhere on the road, don't just always blow through the small towns. Stop in and take a peek. You may just be surprised at what you find.
Lift on the wheels. Okay. Go. Get behind him, go.